أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبو القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
وصل اللهم على آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين. قال الله العزيز في محكم كتابه الكريم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Before we begin, inshallah, I would like to remind everybody that Friday is the day of Ashura. Inshallah, we plan to begin the A'mal by 9 o'clock, and when we finish, we will have the poetry and the majalis, and culminate with Salat al-Dhuhr, inshallah. And then we have the Sham al-Ghariba Majlis that takes place at the night time. Inshallah, I would appreciate it, the management and everybody would appreciate it, if everybody came on time. This way we can perform the A'mal within that given framework. You know, the Al-Qamah takes about an hour. If we perform Zat Ashura, that takes some time. So we want to be able to perform all the A'mal within a timely fashion. Also, if you want to recite some of the A'mal, please contact the administration or myself on the day of Ashura. I'm just saying everybody be on time on the day of Ashura. And if they want to recite or partake in the A'mal recitation, they can contact Abu Ahmad or anyone from the administration, Brother Jawad or anybody from the administration, and we can facilitate that. And then afterwards, at night time, we will have the Sham al-Ghariba Majlis, inshallah. So do we want that before Maghrib, after Maghrib, or after Maghrib, inshallah.
But we need the kids.
Inshallah. And I was asked by Brother Ali Duji that afterwards on Saturday that if we could have a short majlis and a Q&A session for the kids, that would be great, inshallah. And bring all the kids, all ages, they're welcome. Inshallah, we will have a nice, good Q&A session. Also, this community keeps growing, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. A lot of the faces that we saw last year, there are more faces that I saw that were not here last year, this year. So that means the capacity of this space is limited in terms of the number of people it can hold. And inshallah, the capacity of the community, we pray that it can become more. But dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, zakat itself, it is not defined as the literal definition is not tax. Zakat means to grow. When you give in the way of God, Allah makes your wealth grow. So let us do our best that inshallah by next year we will have the new center and everybody will participate in the building of this new center, inshallah. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now let us start. Now we are on night 7, almost 75% of the way there. This is the night between the 7th and the 8th. So tomorrow will be 75% there, and then we will be 20% there on tomorrow night. And the topic that I chose for the discussion of this lecture series is the verse of Al-Quran Al-Kareem, Bismillah Ar-Rahman, is the surah of Quran Al-Kareem, Bismillah Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in these verses, by the time. And we all heard these verses, we all recite sometimes in our prayer short surahs of the Quran. So just like today, I recited the verse or the surah in Salatul Maghribain, both Maghrib and Isha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts by saying, by the time. Now, scholars and ulama, both from the Shia and the Sunnah, differ. Some say it is the time of the Prophet, some say it's Asr time, some say it's the Zamana. But it is an important time. Nonetheless, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. I'm drawing back to my Hausa lessons for the Arabic language. We're studying Nahu al-Wadih, and they have a section called Inna wa akhawatuha. Inna and its sisters, meaning the phrases that follow the same rule as Inna follows, they fall into one category. Inna al-insana lafi khusr. Surely, completely, mankind is at loss. Why? This absolute command applies to all of mankind. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions an exception. One exception. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Except this group of people, this one group of people who believe and they do good and they exhort each other to the truth and patience. You and I, dear brothers and sisters, we call ourselves Muslim. We call ourselves follower of the school of Ahlul Bayt. We call ourselves Shia of the Imam Ali alayhi salam. We call ourselves all of this. But the first question that we have, few questions. If this is the condition of the believer, that he is the only one that, or she is the only one, the believing man and the believing women are the only one that are protected from going astray, this applies to everybody. This applies to everybody. Of those who believe, truly believe, they are protected. What about the one who is Sahibul Iman, or the father of the Sahibul Iman? It is very strange that we say that we are believers and we are correct and fine. We might do haram transaction, or we might not do the right thing. Sometimes there are family problems, sometimes there are cultural problems, sometimes all problems exist. And the worldly temptation is to not follow the Sharia. Go perform whatever deed you want, whichever sin you want, whatever. Yet at the end of the day, we still call ourselves Muslim. We still call ourselves Shia. Unfortunately, the Muslims have said that this person who might sin, make mistakes, fall short of the belief is Muslim. But the Abu Talib who raised Ali, the one who raised Muhammad, the one whose generations are all 12 Imams, they say this person was, na'udhu billah, not Muslim. How unfortunate is that? Of course, I mentioned this last year as well. This talking about the Iman of Abu Talib is a blessing for all of us. But the average khatib, the average speaker, they get satisfied by saying Abu Talib was Muslim, Abu Talib was mu'min. What are you saying? You and I fall under the same category as Abu Talib? No. Abu Talib was Wali ibn Wali ibn Wali ibn Wali. Please go salawat. And it is this Wali that gave birth to Sahibul Iman. I quoted this shared the Sha'ir previously in previous lecture as well. That, and in the same kalam as well, the same poem as well, the same latmiya as well. And then he says, Ali hai baad mein inke, ye pehle naad Ali. Ali came after him. This Abu Talib is the first naad Ali of the defense of the Prophet himself. And then of course he says that after Rasulullah witnessed the death of Abu Talib and Khadijah al-Kubra, he mourned for a whole year. And during his stay in Medina, during the stay in which the message was revealed and the time the Prophet spent in Medina, before every salat, every Fajr salat, he would go say salam to Abu Talib. And of course, in that same poem he says that अगर नबी किसी काफिर को यूं सलामी है तो फिर जरूर नबुवत में कोई खामी है. That if the Prophet gives so much respect and salams to a person who is kafir, that he gets up in the morning before his prayer, he says salam to Abu Talib, then there is some type of imperfection in the nubuwwah. Please say salawat. Even the academics, they understand that Abu Talib was not a mushrik, but the Muslim says he was. What does that mean? They say he was the follower of Dinun Hanifa, the Hanafite religion as they translated into English. This Din Hanifa, I believe, is also mentioned in the Quran. There were in the Arab society, there were Christians, there were Jews, there were polytheists, there were Majusi, there was everybody. Yet there was a group that said, we do not believe in polytheism. We do not believe in the Zoroastrianism. We don't believe in Christianity and Judaism were tempered. We believe in all the prophets from Adam to Isa, and we believe in the coming of a final messenger. You and I say that this is our iman. Meaning this, they say Abu Talib and two clans only in that time belonged to the Hanafite religion completely. The Banu Hashim and the Khandan of Bibi Khadija. The house of Bibi Khadija. They belong to this idea of the belief in the God. They belong to an idea that said the final messenger would come and he would bring this message that would revolutionize all of society. I disagree with this bishop, but Bishop John, I think it was John or Joseph Shelby Spong of the Archdiocese of New Brunswick, which is in New Jersey. In other points we have differences, but he says all the prophets that came into this world were radical revolutionaries, meaning they wanted a complete transformation of the societies in which they came. Prophet Muhammad began a complete revolution to perfect the religion that was started off with Nur Muhammadi and bring it to its final destination. Final destination. Now, of course, they say that in philosophy, that Islam is the most, as they say, perennial of all religions. There's a philosopher by the name of Dr. Sayyid Hussein Nasr. He is Iranian born. During the time of the Shah, he started the Imperial Academy of Philosophy. After the revolution, it still exists now as the Academy of Philosophy. And he met all of these people. He met the Imam Khomeini and Shaykh Mutahari and Shaykh Beheshti and all of them. Islam is the most perennial of all religions, meaning it says the root of every religion, and one thing we can agree, and I'm only mentioning the thing that most people would agree on, is the Adamic or the Adamic or the nature of every religion as being intrinsically focused on one God. Even you go to the Hindus, they say Bhagwan to ek hai. The difference we have with the Hindus, they say Bhagwan is one. Bhagwan, their higher God, is one. These deities or these gods that they make are a reflection of the characteristics of Bhagwan, whom they have separated from the nature of Bhagwan. Meaning, in Arabic or Islamic terminology, they have separated the Dhat of Allah from the Sifat of Allah, and they worship the Sifat of Allah as if, independently, as if they were complete God. That's how we would say it. But even then, our belief is that the first creation is Haqiqat al-Muhammadiyya. So the first religion is the Muhammadan religion. And it is that religion that every prophet came to teach and preach and perfect, and to have people follow. In this religion, and this brings me to the part of the discussion that I want to talk about, before we move on to the example of Ahlul Bayt in Karbala and Ahlul Bayt in general. There is an extreme focus on this idea of divine unity in Islam. I've said this last year as well, in other lectures as well. The the God of Islam is a uniquely monotheistic God. We don't separate them. We don't say He's our God, you follow your gods, whatever. No, God is a universal, not just for all human beings, but completely for all existence. Now, what is the role of God in this universe? Is God just a creator, meaning He started the Big Bang and let everything run off by itself? Is He just a facilitator, meaning He left everybody to free will and He just runs off and He goes away? Is it like a stranded person on an island who finds a watch? The watch is running by itself, but by the intricate nature of the watch, you can understand that there was a creator who made it? No. And what I'm trying to say is that Islamic philosophers have talked about this as well. And what I want to elaborate on before I get on to the explanation of the Islamic thinkers is what some of the Western philosophers have said. One of them, they say that God is an integral part of the universe. If I can imagine something, it must exist. That's what they say. And therefore, everything that exists is a modality, is a reality. And if I think, for example, only physical beings exist, if I put forth this proposition, then therefore God must be a physical being. No. Which either means two things. Either there's a physical being in this world called God, or all of this universe is God. Meaning, as they say in pantheism, God is you, me, everybody else, and He is na'udhu billah hulul and everything. He's the tree, He is the earth, He is the sand, He is everything. No. We believe the philosophers in the Muslim world have believed and said they have different variety of beliefs. But one of the beliefs goes from the times of the Moors in Spain all the way up to some of the Muta'allihin, all the way up to modern day scholars like Jawad Yamani and Imam Khomeini and all of them. Hassan Zadeh Ahmadi also. That this world is a reflection of the divine. Meaning God does not need His reflection. But this reflection for its existence is completely tied to the nature of the God. Let me put it this way. You have a mirror in front of you. You stand up in front of the mirror and you see yourself. If you move away, does that do anything to you? No, you're still yourself. But your reflection goes away. If God now the Billah turned his attention away from creation would cease. God is an intrinsic element of this universe, this world. The other philosophers have also said that this world does not really exist. All that exists is God, and this is just a facade. This is just nothing. And the first is Mullah Sadr, Imam Khomeini, and Jawad Yamani, and Hassan Zad Yamani, and Sayyid Ali Qadi Tabatabai as well. The latter is Ibn al-Farid, Abu al-Hasan al-Shuhstari, and all of them. But my question is this. They all argue God is everywhere, God is everything. Why is God not in our world? Meaning not the physical world, in your life, in my life. In the world of our imaginations, we have so many desires. Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not a part of our life? Our world, our existence? Why is it that we have separated God and done away with Him? Why? One of the reasons why, and I can only explain one of the reasons, and I'll give you my answer afterwards as well, is because after the Renaissance in Europe, the whole world became infatuated by Western thinking. Renaissance ideals. A revolution that did away with God almost completely, left God out of the picture, and said all that matters is analytic philosophy. And because the Western civilization was at its uruj at that time, this spread throughout the world, and it exists today. This idea not comes from just one thought. It comes from a whole analytical philosophy. In science, they would say, God does not cure. Medicine, this physical chemical. I take Tylenol cures my headaches, or Aleve, that cures. If I have the flu, I take this, that cures. If I have, I have influenza, I have pneumonia, that cures. I have jaundice, have A, have B, have C, na'udhu to all of them. This, that cures. This idea is to reduce mankind to a set of chemical compositions that can be changed by further chemical compositions. Meaning, I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit too technical here, but the idea is that God has nothing to do with it. Take a chemical compound, cure yourself, and move on with your life. But is that really what is God about? The whole problem, look, after COVID, you can tell, there in New Jersey, there are a lot of doctors in the community, there's a lot of psychiatrists and therapists in the community. I talked to them after COVID. I said, after COVID, you must have had 300 million new patients coming to your door. COVID was a big hurdle, big problem. Yet the problems that it magnified were not problems that started in 2019 or 2020. The problems that it magnified have been going on for generations and hundreds of years. Why? I don't have God in my life. Why? I don't have the parental system in my life. Why? I don't have the nuclear family in my life. Why? I have this idea of a Western feminism that comes into play. Western capitalism comes into play. Western ideals whereby I want to emulate and I don't want to think by myself and produce active, logical, fundamental shift in the thoughts of the Muslim world, which goes into slavery from the West. I don't want to liberate myself from this. That's why. That's why we see all of these problems. Of course, the whole solution is to bring God back into life. One of the reasons why in traditional thought, especially in the Abrahamic religions, even before the arrival of Christianity into Europe, you study the ancient Greeks, you study the ancient Roman philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, you study all of them. And they have this idea that God made mankind holy. I quote the famous Sufi, Western Sufi, Christoph Schwann, who in his thoughts, one of his books, it says, from the divinity to the human, whereby he is a Christian convert to Islam, becomes the head of the order. He said, and Dr. Sayyid Hussein Nasr, who I mentioned earlier, is the Imam of this order in America. So he says, in comparing this idea, this Christian idea of God becoming man, to the Islamic idea of man manifesting the nature of God in his characteristics, that God became man so that man could become God with the lowercase g. Put it differently, God became man so that man can manifest the nature of godliness in his life. Of course, we're not. God is not man. But where is the godliness in my life? And we don't deny the tradition that says God made man in his image. Does that mean God has a face, body like you and me? No. We say this image, this ruh that Allah imbued with for all of mankind, is this rational intellect. And without God, this rational intellect is nothing. Completely devoid of everything. Now, I want to say, the answer to all of these problems is to bring God back to our lives. Yesterday I started talking about the relationship between parents and their children. Please say salawat. على حب فاطمة الزهراء صلى على محمد. على حب الحسن والحسين صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد. It's very tempting being a mullah and having sweets in front of you. It's very, very tempting. صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد. The reason why we have to bring God back into our lives is because God gives meaning. Look, if somebody is going through a tough time, they have an illness, I mentioned a few earlier, tumor the size of the leg, heart problems, and everything. Giving meaning to your life brings about a psychological understanding of the curing nature of psychology, whereby when you bring God into life, you cure the psychological ills that come with having a physical ailment. And for the psychological illness, it gives you meaning in life. Let me give you an example. I have this one patient, and I'm going to use this example as an introduction point. Thanksgiving weekend. Thanksgiving week. The day of her birthday, she attempted suicide. Patient, when I went in, I was at New York Presbyterian. And I walked into the ER, which was my unit that I had to take care of as a chaplain. I did work in that setting for about a year. And there was a patient, her hands tied with handcuffs to the bed of the hospital bed, both hands tied, both legs tied. She couldn't move. They forced her to in a position where she had to be still so she couldn't do harm herself. So I asked her, why? She said low self-esteem, no friends, nobody loved her, nobody cared for her. If that person, of course, if you are on any type of illness or anything like that with any medications, you have to follow the will of the doctor. If this person had believed that God loved her, maybe there would be a different outcome. If she had brought God into her life and saying, in the Christian term, the Holy Spirit loves me, or Allah loves me. Like I said before, in our traditions, we have the tradition that says, when Allah loves His creation, He completely surrounds Him with suffering. So suffering is divine. Suffering is holy. Suffering is godly. All the prophets suffered, all the imams suffered, Al-Zahra suffered, Bibi Zainab suffered. It's what you make out of this suffering that tells you who you are. If somebody, I'll give you another example of another patient. Open heart transplant, not open heart transplant, heart replacement. I also worked in the cardiac unit in the other hospital that I worked at after I did my 1 year internship in New York area. And the one patient there, 15 weeks. Heart replacement, heart transplant, everything. New heart put in. He was Muslim, so I started talking to him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says you have to follow whatever the doctor says, and I tell him that you have to take care of yourself. This is a part of the divine responsibility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has imbued on you in your jism. And he says, Alhamdulillah, yes, I agree. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants me full shifa. You know what? He was there for 15 weeks. Heart surgery happened, 4 weeks later he was back home. This can happen. And indeed, when we look for miracle, we sometimes say the sky is going to fall, the moon is going to split into pieces, the sun is going to rise from the west, and all of that. These are miracles, yes. The true miracle is the miracle of faith and iman. That this person who went through so many restrictions, and you walk into his room, you have to put in the gown for the COVID, the mask, and the face shield, and gloves, and everything before you just go into that room. That's how severe his situation was. But he believed in God. That gave him hope. He said, keep praying for me, do dua for me, I asked him if they have free copies of the Quran that they give out sometimes in some hospitals. So do you want a musalla? Do you want Quran, a mushaf? And they facilitate everything. My time is almost up, and I believe it is almost up. I have another 5-10 minutes, inshallah. So let's talk about God and life. When you reach the apex of faith, you become like Qasim ibn Hassan. You become like Sayyida Zainab salamullah alayhi. You become like all of these holy individuals. Whereby Qasim ibn Hassan and Sayyida Zainab are prime examples. All of those present in Karbala are the prime example of the manifestation of faith. Why? Lady Zainab, as I mentioned as well, in the palace of the tyrant, she says after everybody, they said, we killed everybody, we looted everything, we destroyed your tents, we burned the tents, we looted the veils, we killed all the male members of your families, and your mom's companions, families, we did everything. What do you see of this? She says, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila." Can anybody really understand that? And of course, this is Ahlul Bayt we're talking about. The Ashab say that if we have our jugular vein severed or our windpipe severed 1,000 times or 100 times, and our bodies are burned and we are given life again, and we will sacrifice our life for you. We will have our jugulars, our windpipe, our everything. We will lose our lives for you 100 times, and we will be given life again. We do it again and again and again and again. I wanted to talk about the relationship between a father and a son, but inshallah we'll talk about that tomorrow. Tonight is Qasim ibn Hassan's night, brothers and sisters. Qasim ibn Hassan is not baligh in Karbala. He's not baligh in Karbala. He's 13 years old. Around that age, but he's not baligh. He's a little boy when Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam breathes his last. When Imam al-Hassan was breathing his last, in his final moments, they say Muawiyah bribed Imam al-Hassan's wife, saying that if you kill al-Hassan, that I will have you marry my son Yazid. So she gave Imam al-Hassan a poison. And Imam al-Hassan the poison was so strong, they say that the liver, chunks of the liver, he would keep on vomiting out chunks of his liver into 72 pieces that were put in a bowl. They say that when Imam al-Hassan was breathing his last, Ahlul Bayt wanted to come in, but he said to his wife, the one who had betrayed him, cover this plate. She says, why do you want me to cover? He said, I don't want Zainab to see. They say that this wife, after committing this crime, she felt that she could not face Sayyida Zainab. So Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, out of his infinite mercy, he says, go out through the back door. Go out through the back door. If you can't face Zainab, go out from here. They say that when Imam al-Hussein came, he went to see his brother. He went to see his brother Imam al-Hassan. And Ahlul Bayt were informed about the shahadat of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. When Imam Hassan was in his last days, Imam Hussein had Hazrat Qasim go out, looking completely like an orphan, saying, everybody understood that Imam al-Hassan had been killed. He had been completely orphaned, Qasim ibn al-Hassan. On the night of Shabi Ashur, when all the companions are pledging their allegiance to Abdullah al-Hussein, Imam al-Hussein asked Qasim ibn al-Hassan a question. He says to him, Qasim, what is death in your view? And Qasim says the most beautiful words. He says, in your way, death is sweeter than honey. What Qasim is saying, that Qasim ibn Hassan is not on the level of Ismat al-Sughra, but we cannot attribute any mistake to Qasim ibn Hassan. He says, as a non-baligh teenage boy who is 13 years of age, first year of teenhood, he says death is sweeter than honey. Which teenager? Forget which teenager, which adult, when faced with death, would say death is sweeter than honey. This is the iman of Qasim ibn Hassan. He says, oh uncle, in your way I'm giving everything. I am giving my life. I am giving everything. Don't worry about it. Dear brothers and sisters, on the night of Ashura, when all the women were saying their final wishes to their children, they say that Farwa, Imam al-Hassan's wife, Hazrat Qasim's mother, she was saying to Hazrat Qasim, listen Qasim, tomorrow is going to be a big fight. I am non-Hashimi woman. I don't want anybody to say that if you are late to go to fight, that it was because of my tarbiyah as a non-Hashimite woman. So I want you to go first. They say Qasim ibn Hassan kept on asking for permission to go fight. Imam al-Hussein would say, no, I'm not letting you go. You are the last reminder of my brother. You are the last one that that reminds me of my brother. You are my brother's son. They say Qasim ibn al-Hasan got distressed at one time after one refusal of Imam al-Hussein. So he went out and he sat down in the tent or in the back of the tent. His mother came and she said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" He says, "Mother, I keep on asking permission to go fight, but my uncle Hussein won't let me go. Imam Hussein won't let me go." Then she remembers that on his last days, last moments, Imam al-Hasan wrote something on a piece of paper. He put it in the form of an amulet, and he said to them that there is something that I will give you when you are in most need. Use this as a way of solving this problem. Qasim said, Qasim and his mother thought there's no more needy situation. And wanting to sacrifice everything on the way of your Imam, yet not being able to do so. So she went, she got the amulet, opened it up. It was a letter to Imam al-Hussein, written by Imam al-Hasan. They showed this letter to Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein, seeing his brother's handwriting, he starts to cry. The letter reads, "Oh Hussein, there will be a time after me. There will be a time where you will be surrounded alone with enemies all around you. I will not be there. I want you to, my son Qasim will be my representative on that day. I want him to fight on my way for you." Imam al-Hussein noticing, listen dear brothers and sisters, wasiyya, last admonishments before a person leaves this world, are wajib for all Muslimin. The last will of Imam al-Hasan is this. So Imam al-Hussein, he gets the imama and the zirah and the shield and the sword of Imam al-Hasan onto Hazrat Qasim. Hazrat Qasim, they say he was so small that it would not fit him. There are different traditions, dear brothers and sisters, in the Indian Pak community, and the Arab community, and the Iranian community. They say that Qasim ibn al-Hasan, he went to the battlefield. They say Qasim ibn al-Hasan went to the battlefield. He fought, then he noticed his sandals were broken. He went to go tie and fix his sandal. Somebody came and he attacked him. Qasim ibn al-Hasan fell. And he said to him, "Ya Allah, oh uncle, come help me." Imam al-Hussein, noticing that his brother's son Qasim had fell, he came with his horse dashing towards the Maqtal. They say that Imam al-Hussein would go one way and the enemies would go another way. The Imam al-Hussein would go the other way and the enemies would go the other way. They say after the dust had settled between this fight between Imam al-Hussein and the enemies, all that was left of Qasim was a few pieces of bone and flesh. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he looks at his body and he says to Qasim, "Oh Qasim, woe to your uncle that you call him and he cannot come to you. And when you call him and he comes to you, he cannot help you." They say Imam al-Hussein wanted to pick up the body of Qasim. He wanted to pick up Qasim's body. He would pick one side and another side would fall off. He would pick the other side and the other side would fall off. In the Indian tradition, they say he took off his amama and he opened it up. He put the pieces of Hazrat Qasim's body into this chadar and he tied it up. And he went to the tent. He encountered Farwa, who said, "What happened to my son Qasim? What happened to my son Qasim? I don't see a Qasim." Imam al-Hussein says, "He is in this sack that I've tied with my amama." Qasim ibn al-Hasan had used his eyes. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un.
Ya Hussein! Ya Hussein!